Have you ever wondered about the true identity of the ancient Hebrews? For centuries, biblical figures like Moses, King David, and the prophets have been depicted as fair-skinned, blue-eyed characters. But what if we have been looking at history through a distorted lens? What if, hidden beneath centuries of whitewashed art and colonial narratives, lies a forgotten truth? The idea that the original Hebrews were not European, but African, dark-skinned, deeply rooted in the lands of Egypt, Ethiopia, and Nubia is hard to believe for many. Could the very people who shaped the foundations of Christianity and Judaism have been black? And if so, why has this truth been hidden for so long? In this video, join us on a journey to uncover the lost identity of the ancient Hebrews, a story that challenges everything you thought you knew.
The Black History Archives.
For centuries, the dominant image of ancient Hebrews has been filtered through a European lens, where figures like Moses, David, and Solomon are consistently depicted with fair skin and blue eyes. These portrayals have become so deeply ingrained in Western culture that only a few question their accuracy. However, these representations are not rooted in historical reality, but are instead products of centuries of art, literature, and colonial influence. To understand the origins of the ancient Hebrews, we must begin with the Bible's genealogical records, specifically in the book of Genesis. According to Scripture, after the Great Flood, Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, repopulated the earth. Each son is said to have given rise to different nations, with Ham's lineage being particularly significant when exploring African connections. Therefore, Ham is traditionally recognized as the progenitor of several nations that are directly linked to Africa. Ham's descendants include Cush, Mizraim, and Canaan. Cush is often associated with the regions of modern-day Ethiopia and Sudan, where the Cushites, known for their dark skin, built a powerful and culturally rich civilization. Mizraim refers to Egypt, one of the most influential ancient civilizations. The Egyptians were renowned for their scientific, architectural, and artistic achievements, often depicting themselves with dark skin in their art. Pay attention. Canaan, another of Ham's descendants, settled in territories that include present-day Israel, Palestine, and parts of Lebanon and Syria. And the Canaanites were closely related to the Hebrews, sharing cultural and familial ties. This lineage places the Hebrews within the broader context of African civilizations, suggesting that they were not isolated from their neighbors, but deeply integrated into the Afro-Asiatic world. The descendants of Ham were not only dark-skinned, but also the founders of some of the most influential kingdoms of the ancient world. The Hebrews, being descendants of Abraham, who originally were from Ur, near ancient Sumer, eventually intermarried with the descendants of Ham during their extended stay in Egypt. The biblical account indicates that the Hebrews were part of a shared Afro-Asiatic cultural sphere, with linguistic, cultural, and even genetic connections to their African neighbors. However, this connection is often downplayed in mainstream interpretations, yet it is crucial for understanding the true identity of the ancient Hebrews. That's when geography further offers a better understanding. The geographical landscape of the ancient world was far more fluid than the rigid political boundaries we see today. In antiquity, North Africa and the Middle East were part of a continuous cultural and economic zone where people, goods, and ideas moved freely. The Hebrews, like other Semitic groups, interacted in this interconnected region, which allowed for deep exchanges with neighboring civilizations. The Hebrews' long stay in Egypt, which spanned several centuries according to biblical accounts, placed them firmly within an African context. Living among Egyptians, the Hebrews would have been exposed to Egyptian religious rituals, art forms, and societal structures, all of which left an imprint on their culture. This prolonged interaction likely resulted in intermarriage and cultural blending, further strengthening the connection between the Hebrews and their African neighbors. Here's a reminder to please support us so we can make more videos for you by subscribing to our channel and giving the video a like. We want to build a strong community, and we need your support. Let's continue now. Moses, one of the central figures in Hebrew history, was raised as a prince in the royal courts of Egypt. According to the Bible, when Moses fled from Egypt, he was mistaken for an Egyptian by the daughters of the priest of Midian. This suggests that Moses bore a strong resemblance to the Egyptians, who were black Africans. If Moses and other Hebrews had been fair-skinned, this confusion would have been unlikely. This raises questions about the racial identity of the Hebrews, especially since their prolonged stay in Egypt led to significant cultural assimilation. The biblical account of their enslavement and subsequent exodus portrays the Hebrews as a marginalized group, much like the Nubians and Cushites, who were also subjugated by the Egyptians. The years spent in Egypt left a profound impact on Hebrew culture. Elements of Egyptian religious symbolism, temple architecture, and even language made their way into Hebrew traditions. For instance, the name Moses is derived from the Egyptian word, meaning son or born of, as seen in names like Thutmose and Rameses. Further evidence of the deep ties between Hebrews and Africans can be seen in Moses' marriage. He took a Cushite woman as his wife, who was black. Interestingly, this marriage did not cause controversy among the Hebrews, indicating that such unions were neither unusual nor taboo. That's because Moses himself looked like his wife. Another significant biblical reference is found in the Song of Solomon, where the speaker proudly declares, "I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem." This statement challenges the European portrayals of biblical figures as white. Rather than presenting dark skin as undesirable, this poetic text celebrates it as a mark of beauty, suggesting that among the ancient Hebrews, dark skin was both common and valued. These biblical descriptions reveal that the Hebrews did not regard dark skin as a negative trait, contrary to the racial biases introduced by later European colonial interpretations. Instead, dark skin was embraced as part of their identity, reflecting the physical characteristics of people living in regions like Egypt and Kush. This perspective aligns with historical realities, where Hebrews lived in close proximity to African civilizations. But does more evidence exist? Well, the Lemba people of southern Africa offer one of the most compelling cases for the African roots of the ancient Hebrews. The Lemba have long claimed Jewish ancestry, maintaining rituals remarkably similar to those of ancient Israelites, including observing the Sabbath, following kosher dietary laws, and practicing circumcision. Their oral histories have preserved these traditions, suggesting that they are descendants of Jews who migrated to Africa centuries ago. In the late 20th century, genetic research confirmed these ancestral claims. Scientists discovered that the Lemba carry the Cohen modal haplotype, a genetic marker found among the priestly line of the Israelites. This discovery was groundbreaking because it provided scientific proof linking the Lemba, who are distinctly African, to the ancient Hebrews. The fact that the Lemba preserved their Jewish customs despite being geographically distant from the Middle East indicates that the Hebrews left a significant impact on the African continent. Now, it is established that ancient Hebrews were black and had African roots. Hence, the widespread depiction of biblical figures as white is not based on historical evidence, but was largely shaped during the Renaissance and colonial periods. Artists like Michelangelo painted religious scenes with European features, infusing these images into the popular imagination. This artistic choice was not merely about aesthetics. It was a deliberate attempt to align Christianity with European identity and superiority. Today, the effects of this whitewashing continue to shape religious iconography, literature, and popular culture. It creates the need to correct the historical record because the distorted form of history has punished the very people whose ancestors were the very Hebrews we are talking about. That's because the fabrication of religion and history allowed Europeans to justify slavery. However, acknowledging the African roots of the Hebrews honors the immense contributions of black civilizations to the foundations of Judaism and Christianity. This restoration challenges the pervasive myth that religious and cultural greatness is exclusively European. By recognizing that the ancient Hebrews were deeply connected to African civilizations, we create a more inclusive understanding of history that celebrates the diversity of the ancient world. Beyond historical accuracy, this restoration carries deep personal significance for many African communities. For groups with traditions linked to the ancient Hebrews, acknowledging these connections is a powerful validation of their cultural heritage. It affirms that their ancestors were not mere bystanders, but were actively shaping the spiritual traditions that have endured through millennia. After knowing this, what are your thoughts about the ancient Hebrews' color and ethnicity? Isn't it true that religious figures and events have been whitewashed and Europeanized to such an extent that thinking otherwise seems untrue? In the comment section right below, let us know whether you always doubted the whiteness of the ancient Hebrews because of their geography. Would you like us to make more videos? If yes, please support us by subscribing to the Black History Archives and clicking the bell icon. You can check out more videos on our channel too.